Welcome to Total Apex Sports. This is the fourth and goal. I'm Andrew with our guests Brandon and Lawson, writers of Total Apex for fantasy and bets. But yeah, let's we since we already did the playoff conference championship preview the last show, we can go over a few of the a bunch of coaching hirings. They're basically only I think three or four jobs left. The biggest one we touched on it a little bit last show was Ben Johnson to the Bears, but actually I kind of want to get into the newest hire with Aaron Glenn because there were reports saying like, oh, he was mulling the job, like he obviously you have to explore all options, but it sounded like it wasn't like I don't know. It's obviously the Jet job isn't like they have good defensive talent, but in terms of like who the offensive coordinator is, that could be a big part of that. I did hear that they might keep Rodgers. Glenn would prefer to do that. What do you think about that, Lawson, in terms of like the Jets next year?
In terms of the Jets next year, I think Aaron Glenn is an awesome hire. We saw like when they
Mm-hmm.
fired Robert Saleh, you see that out of all the coaches, he was the best one in the building because their defense, their pass defense especially went from top three to bottom eight. So like even if some people, and I've said this for weeks, some people just aren't meant to be good head coaches. And I thought Robert Saleh did the best job of what he had, over the totality of his tenure in New York. He had, Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson. And then with Aaron Rodgers, that's the best of the bunch, even though the a la Aaron Savas year was supposed to be the year before.
Yeah.
And then four snaps into it, he pops his Achilles. And then this year, even towards the tail end, I thought Rodgers looked fine. I know there's been, reporting of if Rodgers comes back, Garrett Wilson wants out, which, I don't understand. Like, in theory, I get it because, they bring in Devontae Adams and then Garrett Wilson's now just he is so talented when it comes to all these young receivers. Is he, your Justin Jefferson or your Jamar Chase? No, because those two are exceptional. But in the grand scheme of things, I think he's more of a between 12 and 18 receiver, which if they bring Rodgers back, that's obviously your best available unless they're going to go and try and get somebody like a Sam Darnold or I don't know, they could kick the tires on somebody on an older quarterback or a younger but still oldish quarterback like a Derek Carr or, somebody because there's not I mean, I doubt they want to pay the $45 million Sam Darnold's probably going to command.
No.
No, I don't think so either. So in terms of just the team outlook, I think the defense will return to being a upper echelon defense. The offense, I want to see who they bring in to help with the offense, and just like you brought up, they want Aaron Glenn wants to keep Rodgers, but what are they going to do with the Rodgers situation?
Yeah, I mean, also like he's also mulling retirement as well, so that would be
That's what I'm saying.
another.
So there's
Yeah,
so
the
many
options
question
are
marks that
limited.
still haven't been answered.
Hmm. Yeah, Brandon, was this the potentially best option for the Jets for head coaching candidate, at least for this year?
I think so. The Jets like to go defensive mind more so than offensive mind, and that I've noticed in my, watching because they had Parcells for the longest time. Then they had the Belichick the one day before he went to New England. Then they had Herm Edwards, who was more of a defensive guy. Then they had Rex Ryan. Then they had Salah. I can't remember the guy before Salah because Rex was
Adam
like
Gase, but he was a more offensive guy.
he was more offense, but that
Yeah,
didn't work out.
Yeah.
So the ones that have the success with the Jets seem to be the more defensive guys because that's I guess that's how Woody Johnson like his mindset of that on the ground the game is. But at the same time, for me, if they don't address the quarterback situation right, it's going to be another dead end hire.
hmm
Unfortunately, even though Aaron Glenn had a lot of talent in Detroit this year, he got the backups to play mostly well until the divisional game last weekend.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah,
so he's a good coach. I think he's the right coach for this talented defense. And it's going to be interesting to see what his staff looks like, especially on the offensive side of the ball. That's what the most important thing with these defensive hires is who they're going to get on the offensive side. Because every time we have a defensive guy in there, like Robert Saleh, for instance, they got Nathaniel Hackett in there, which was the wrong hire. He was the wrong hire. We saw in Denver with how that worked out. And it even though they try to get Rodgers, his old quarterback from the 2020 teams and all that stuff, it's just not going to be the same, especially with the Rodgers being old and stuff like that. So I find it interesting they went the defense route again. If I were the Jets, I probably would have went with one of the other offensive options, like a Monken or a Joe Brady or someone like that, just because you're not sure what the quarterback position is going to be. You're not sure what you're going to do with offensive coordinator, mind you. But I like the hire. I'm not saying I like the hire, but I would rather run with one of the offensive guys.
Yeah, it seemed more of a let's just get a culture guy, like former player from New York, rate the floor of because I felt like if Salah was kept this year, they could have won like 6-7 games. Like their defense fell apart after they fired him. So this was more of a safer approach. Like, let's see what happens. Like, this offseason on offense. But speaking of offense, like the Ben Johnson thing, it's going to be interesting to see how he meshes with Caleb Williams, because Caleb is like an out of structure guy, but Ben Johnson's more of a he structures not his entire playbook, but a lot of it was detailed towards being in structure, like timing rhythm with Jared Goff. So that was I think that was like the second head coaching move, but that was probably like the biggest in terms of like they were based on what I've read, there were like people thinking, oh, like he wouldn't go to the division rival Bears, like that's kind of I don't know, a little bit. It stings for the Lions per se. I don't know if you saw his press conference. He said he'd like to kick Mike McFlurry's rear end a few times, like during the division. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. Lawson, what'd you think of the Ben Johnson hiring?
From a Caleb Williams specific standpoint, we saw him on Amonra's podcast. Like, I would love to. He didn't say go get me Ben Johnson, but he essentially said go get me an offensive guy. And out of all the offensive guys, your Liam Cohen's or your Ben Johnson's, Ben Johnson was the best one. Now, just like you said, Ben Johnson's offense historically has been a lot of on-timing, accuracy stuff, and we've seen Caleb just his rookie year and even in college, his accuracy, it's been a little bit of an issue. And another thing with Caleb is in college he could be Superman. He was faster than a lot of defensive players to where he could just scramble and make it work with his arm. Now, there are some people that believe that you cannot coach holding the ball too long out of certain players. I am on the latter part of it, saying that, oh, you 100% you can coach that out of players. And I think it starts with a very, very wise and smart offensive guy like Ben Johnson is. They have talent there. They need to address the interior of their offensive line, because he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year.
Him and a couple other guys, I think, but it was Caleb by far probably up there.
And then in terms of who he's bringing in, he brought in Dennis Allen from the Saints. Now, whether you like Dennis Allen on the Saints or not, we know he's a fantastic coordinator. I mean, just look at his history. He's been, and I said this about 5 minutes ago, some people, they're just not meant to be head coaches. There's so much more stuff on your plate, and we're going to see if Ben Johnson can be a good NFL head coach. Now, the only problem is he's going to one of the most stacked divisions in the entire NFL, in the NFC North. You have Detroit, who top to bottom still a very talented roster. You have Minnesota, who, depending upon how they view JJ McCarthy, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And then you have the Packers, who, once again, really young, up and coming team. Depending upon what they do with the Jair Alexander issue, but that's a topic for another day. But to go back to the original point, I think Ben Johnson is, out of all of the potential candidates, he was the best hire for Caleb.
Yeah.
I was going to say with the Ben Johnson hire, I just found it interesting that within them losing that weekend, right? Ben Johnson goes to the division rival.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn goes back to New York essentially. Um, I just found it like Adam Schefter said it on Sunday it would accelerate them losing, and it did accelerate.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to believe because now like those two jobs are gone just like that, and now you got the Cowboys looking at just going to get their job filled by Friday now with the Brian Schottenheimer news. I don't know if we're going to get into that or not.
Potentially,
So
yeah.
they're probably gonna get Brian Schottenheimer, who is in the building already, to be their head coach, which I find to be kind of the like lackluster move by Jerry.
Yeah, it's not a sexy flair pick.
No, it's not. And when that offense this year wasn't the best offense this year under Schottenheimer either. Even though it was Mike McCarthy calling plays, Schottenheimer's schemes around it, getting CD the ball like they didn't get CD the ball when they needed to and certain stuff. But back to Ben Johnson, I know we'll probably get to the Cowboys later, but back to Ben Johnson, I like the hire for Caleb if, and this is only if, like Lawson said, they get the offensive line. Because if they don't get the offensive line, it's not going to work because the structure that Ben Johnson's offenses have, like the timing, the rhythm, requires good offensive line play, and that's what Detroit had. Detroit had that great offensive line they built for years, and if they don't have that in Chicago next year, I tell you this, it's going to be another 4, 5, 6 win next team for that Chicago Bears franchise, and it's going to be another disappointing season because I like the weapons are great. Caleb can be great if he can get the stuff out of him. That's why I would have gone like someone that's familiar with him, like Cliff or Lincoln Riley, if they wanted to buy him out for USC.
That could have been interesting.
Because I would have gone with that because they know Caleb. They know how to work with him. They know how to move him out of the pocket and stuff like that. And we've seen what Cliff does done with Jaden Daniels this year. He can do the similar things with Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
doesn't need the most structured offense. Caleb,
right.
Here, get the ball here. All right, it's out of your hands. Like a screen. Give a screen to DJ Moore. Take it to the house, like we saw with Terry McLaurin over the weekend. This is the quick game. I think a lot of Ben Johnson's pass concepts are more the intermediate stuff, more intermediate than the short game. And I think Caleb needs the short game until they can get an offensive line. That's just where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I will admit, after they fired Eberflus, Thomas Brown, like, they did try to get the short game. It's just they couldn't block, like, at all. Like, they couldn't they couldn't execute it. So yeah, it will be interesting to see like their pairing and if he can make do with the weapons he has. I mean, the good thing is like with the 10th pick, they have a lot of options at offensive line.
Yeah.
It will be interesting also because I know they have DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson, but I mean they could turn Genty into their own Gibbs if they really wanted to.
Yeah, they could
just get a playmaker out there. But
that's a good point.
The biggest need is definitely offensive line, for sure. I did hear the new chief GM, Gordon Noni, I think that's but he came over from the Chiefs. But the new GM, he basically said like, oh, we're not gonna pass up on like an elite talent just for example, a quarterback, which is pretty much their biggest need. I mean, we've seen big like shocking things happen in the draft. Like, Lawson, do you think if let's just say they paint Travis Hunter as the best player in the draft, which I mean like no one has been able to kind of like do what he's been doing in college recently. I mean, how would he fit on the Titans?
Travis Hunter specific, just if he were to go to the Titans, it goes back to, okay, well, what's going to play full time? I think that he's a cornerback to start and a slot to third string receiver, secondary.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like the quote of not passing up an elite prospect for need, it's kind of in a sense what we saw with Detroit. Now, granted, they're not gonna be anywhere near Detroit, but when Detroit was 100% healthy, they just had too many good players. Like they are like what Detroit did. They amassed the most amount of talent and put it on the field and say we're just a better team than you. Now, to go back to your original point, I think Travis Hunter's gonna be fine wherever he lands. Due to I think he's gonna be a corner, and I think he's an exceptional corner. Just his feet, his quickness, his size, his range, his ball in the air skills are excellent. Um, but I thought the quote was really interesting because for the elite prospect, there's another one by Cam Ward, who's just
Yeah.
now granted it's not a strong quarterback draft. However, when you just talk about an elite prospect, Cam Ward is it. He's mobile, good arm. Yeah, he can be a little reckless at times, but I think all signs point to Travis Hunter is who he's alluding to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brandon. I mean, the thing. I think the Titans actually they do need both positions, so it wouldn't actually be the worst move. It's just like, what the heck are they gonna do with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph? They're not running it back again. Like that's just not gonna happen. So yeah. What are your thoughts on? Coaches and GMs say that all the time. BPA, which is a strategy a lot of teams do. But in terms of like the Titans, like I think the last show, or the 2 shows ago, Lawson was saying how they could like if they get like a package to move down, like you know like maybe I don't know who would do this, but like if they want to move down like 1 or 2 picks, and then they still got like a Travis Hunter level player, like that would probably be pretty intriguing for them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, I think that with that him saying that opens the door for the trade, like you're talking about, Andrew, because it opens the door more and more. Because like they've gotten a sense, they have to had a sense by now. If they were like, oh, we're not going to necessarily pass up an elite prospect for need. Okay, this ain't probably not going to be the best quarterback class, and we're probably not going to be good next year. Might as well tank, get the asset, get the assets trade down, maybe get Travis Hunter with the second or third pick, or something like that, or fourth pick. If say New England wants to somehow go up there and get something, but if New England trades up, it'd be for Travis Hunter. So let's just nip that in the butt. So it has to be second or third. For me, I think obviously the fact of the matter is, if they do draft Travis Hunter with the first pick, would actually keep the pick and actually draft him, does Dion want Travis Hunter there?
That's a good point.
Okay,
that's a really good point.
Could Dion do the thing with Philip Rivers or Eli Manning, like the Mannings did with Eli Manning? Could he step in and be like, "No, I don't want Travis Hunter there," because he technically Dion has that relationship with his, even though it's not his family per se, it's not his parents. Dion's had that relationship for so long with the Hunters and everything like that. So I just think for me, I think if they do draft him at 1, there's a possibility that there's going to be another Eli situation.
Yeah. In terms of like the Titans themselves, like they just can't fire somebody after 1 year again, because if they fire Brian Callahan even in a bad year, then it's gonna basically a repeat of this past year is gonna happen, and you're gonna have to start all over. But yeah, Brandon, you mentioned to me privately you wanted to talk about your Eagles again.
Yes.
So I'll give you the floor.
So I was thinking about this the other day. As we were back in the NFC title game for second time in 3 years, why are we back this year when a lot of people have been like, oh, Jalen Hurts in the pass offense, and it's not been the greatest, and I know Saquon's been great. Is it Saquon? I actually think it's the Eagles defense more so than Saquon Barkley. This Eagles defense last year was bottom of the league, especially after the collapse, bottom of the league in points allowed, yards allowed, pass yards allowed, rating allowed, every stat, rushing yards, everything, tackles missed, bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Everything, or the most in the league, but you know what I mean by bottom of the league in that sense. Everything across the sun, bottom of the league in during the collapse, which led to the loss in Tampa Bay. What do? We get Vic Fangio, the guy we wanted after the Super Bowl, and after Gannon left. That's the guy we wanted, but he already signed with Miami, so he couldn't leave that deal. Check. We get Zach Bond, who Vic identified who could play off ball that not many people see, could play off ball.
Yeah, no.
And he's played off ball this year and is an all-pro and a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year award. I hope he wins it, but it might not go to Zach Bond. They drafted the two corners who were announced as finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year, both of them. I thought it was just going to be Quinyon, but Cooper DeJean's also a finalist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can argue that could have gone to Mikey Sanders still, and I think a lot of Washington fans have been arguing that on Twitter since it was announced. But I'm not mad at the pick. Cooper's not going to win it anyway. It's probably going to be either Quinyon or Verse anyway. But I digress.
Yeah.
With that point, he turned Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter to the first-round picks they were supposed to be, Vic Fangio did. And he's been the Associated Press nominated, Assistant of the Year. So, and I think he could win that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, they went in this offseason having to get the coordinators right. Now, it's up in the air whether or not they got Kellen right because, the pass offense. But like I said, the pass offense has been fine. I think they'll be fine this weekend in the little bit warmer weather, the 40-degree weather. But I digress on that. The main point is defense. Vic Fangio, A+. A+ hire. Zach Bond, A+ acquisition. The two draft picks of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean with the first two draft picks, A+. I'd say Nakobe Dean when he was healthy, playing A+ ball. Zach Bond obviously was A+ pick, like I said. And also getting CJ Gardner-Johnson back. Third straight NFC Championship appearance for CJ because he was on that Detroit team last year.
Mm.
Getting him back brought the hunger back in this defense that they were missing last year. Now, granted, the first part of the year he was missing tackles like everybody was. But when they made the switch to having Cooper DeJean in there finally and all that stuff, CJ's been balling ever since the bye week. And arguably, he was him getting ejected was the reason they lost to the Commanders game, the one loss they've had since September. So I digress. I love talking my Eagles all day long. But for me, that's it's not just Saquon Barkley and all the national media saying, oh, this Jaden Daniels is the best rookie quarterback we've seen. We're going to find out if he can actually throw for 5 touchdowns again when we have a full stack Eagles lineup in the game and the crowd noise that's going to be on Sunday. We're going to find out because this defense is the best defense since the Legion of Boom, since the Baltimore defenses that I have seen play the game of football in a long time. Better than Denver. Better than that Denver Super Bowl. I'll take this Eagles defense or that Denver Super Bowl defense. I would. I love the way they fight for the ball. I love how they rally to the ball, all 3 levels. Because Jalen Carter has made play after play after play, rallying to the football when he's getting blocked. I see you, Lawson. I know you. Some of your Steelers,
no-fly zone was tough.
They are tough, man. They were tough. But this Eagles defense is a no-fly zone. Like, trust me on that. They don't allow the big play when they're normally.
I get you.
Yeah.
But they allowed the big play against Matthew Stafford last week because they didn't have Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah.
For basically the whole game. So, I love Slay. I love Cooper. I love Reed Blankenship. This defense, I'm making bold claims here. Bold claims. We're going to see what happens Sunday. But once if this defense is what I say they are, watch out for a 7-8 point Eagles win. That's what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like coming into the year, they had like a few like question marks in terms of like we haven't seen the full potential on like especially like linebacker. Like that was
Right.
a position of need, and then it literally just turned over and transitioned, kind of like a little bit like what the Ravens did at the midway point, but they did that like to start the year,
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically. Um, so yeah, I mean they don't really have that many flaws. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like you know if the Eagles win and they get to the Super Bowl and then they end up winning it, like it would probably be because of the defense at
Mm-hmm.
for the most part because whether it's Buffalo or Kansas City, they're gonna try to shut down Saquon.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously, Hurts he still can throw. Like that's not really an issue. He can move the offense. He could you know contribute in the run game, but the defense getting like takeaways things like that for the Eagles, like that would be a big part of like hypothetically like if they win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get into real quick some coaching stuff with new hire. There's a lot. I thought obviously the two biggest things like that were basically wins were the Bucks keeping Liam Cohen and the
Mm-hmm.
Vikings re-signing Kevin O'Connell. There was like that weird thing a few weeks ago where like he wanted to get like teams were like calling to get it to trade for him, but I don't know that was probably just for contract leverage. That wasn't anything substantial. Um, but yeah, there's a few other moves to talk about with the Colts signing Lou Anarumo. The Bengals today they got Al Golden from Notre Dame to be
Mm-hmm.
their DC. The Patriots bring back Josh McDaniels and Terrell Williams. They both have familiarity with Vrabel, Lawson. And they're one that sticks out as a probably like this would be like the move to change the team around.
Um, for an individual hire, I mean, you look at the Colts defense this year; they were awful, and then you also look at the
Yeah,
Bengals defense, and they weren't very good either. But out of everything you mentioned, I love that Tampa Bay kept Liam Cohen. I think he's excellent. We saw Baker arguably was a top 5 quarterback all year long. You look 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. Now his turnovers, and I feel like it sucks because they were going to upset it. They were going to beat Washington if it wasn't for a miscommunicated end
yeah,
around, or that comes with the getting too cute as opposed to just going under center and running Bucky Irving, who's been exceptional all year long. I think that was by far the best thing, retaining such a brilliant offensive mind, because Chris Godwin's coming back, Jalen McMillan's going to be better, Mike Evans is going to be Mike Evans is still Mike Evans, Baker's still Baker, Bucky Irving for a whole season, because Bucky Irving didn't really pop till like week 6, week 7. Then that's when he started to
yeah.
get more snaps, and Rashad White's snap count went down. Their offensive line is still really good. They're in a very, very winnable division that the NFC South is. So I think if they would have lost him, it would have been like, well, for everything that they just built up, now it's a new scheme, now it's a new offense, XYZ, this, that, and the third. And we've seen Baker go through offensive head coaches and offensive coordinators do too since he's been in the league. You look at, Cleveland, and then in Carolina, and now he really found a home in Tampa Bay.
Hmm.
For
Yeah.
for me, I'm gonna. I guess I'm gonna go with the golden pick
Yeah.
for Cincinnati, because we're going. I'm gonna get into a
Oh, you're
little bit into.
Bengals.
Well, I'm not gonna say my Bengals with this. I'm gonna go into the Notre
Okay.
Dame Fighting Irish
Mm-hmm.
season.
Yeah.
The arc for the Notre Dame Irish. So they lost to Northern Illinois early in the year after that Texas A&M win. It was a low scoring game. It wasn't that great. They defense still only allowed 17 in that game, I believe. It was like, they could have won it with a field goal in the end. I digress. After that, Marcus Freeman and Golden made their adjustments, and they went on this long win streak. Got into the playoff, beat Indiana down. Their defense controlled that game from start to finish. Their defense controlled the game against Georgia from start to finish, and their defense made the big play against Penn State. And Drew Aller, like Lawson said, next year probably be one of the best quarterbacks in that draft. Was saying if he entered in this draft, he'd probably be the best quarterback in this draft. I digress. Golden was also part of that Cincinnati staff in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
The familiarity with Zach Taylor and that system, I think that's why he went with Golden, obviously. But him having the reins as the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, they got to the national championship. Now, granted, they did allow over 30 to Ohio State. That's Ohio State. That offense, you're going to allow 30 to that offense with that talent of Baalke and Jeremiah Smith and Bo Junkins and Henderson. Will Howard's a serviceable college football quarterback and that offensive line. So that's you're not gonna get that many stops against the Ohio State Buckeyes. But the fact that he shut down two of the best running backs in Penn State and Happy Valley who have decided to come back, he shut them down. He also made Drew Aller look like he was seeing ghosts out there, especially that last pick in that situation. He was seeing ghosts. This is an underrated hire for Cincinnati, and it also goes back to when we did the mock draft, and Dusty mentioned Benjamin Morris for another team. I mentioned Cincinnati for the Ben Morrison pick because I could see that's a good guy. And now, especially with Golden there, he knows what Ben Morrison has, and I would not be shocked if Golden goes into the draft room and be like, all right, this is the guy I want for this defense right here. I want that corner from Notre Dame. I coached him, even though he was injured this year for the most part. I want him. That's the guy I want in the first round with my 17th, 18th pick. I would not be shocked by that. It gets him another corner on the outside, and hopefully they can get Turner back. They can get a lot of these other corners back, and playing right. Especially DJ Turner. Him being out kind of hurt their slot corner spot, but as he's got the right sense, and I think Zach Taylor saw what he was doing in Notre Dame. He's like, okay, this is the guy I want to replace Lou. So,
a few other moves that happened. Like Lawson said, like the Cowboys, and Brendan, the Cowboys are probably going to make their OC Schottenheimer their head coach, which is I'm not the biggest fan of Mike McCarthy, but in terms of the Giants kept their guys, and then after one non-playoff season because of the quarterback being hurt and everything, they're gonna kind of downgrade to getting Schottenheimer. Yeah, that's not really Pete Carroll and Joe Brady. Obviously, they're also interviewing Robert Saleh and Kellen Moore. There's all the possibilities floating out there. But, Lawson, I did want to talk about the Jags firing Trent Baalke after Ben Johnson agreed to basically, not even, 24 hours, agreed to be the coach for the Bears. Also, Liam Cohen withdrawing his offer for being the head coach of the team. Who's going to coach the Jaguars, do you think?
It's real tough considering the fact that you still have Robert Saleh's out there and Kellen Moore's out there, and it's such in theory, out of all the jobs that are left, it's the worst job because outside of Trevor Lawrence, you have a lot of bad contracts on there, like your Gabe Davis contract. Evan Ingram's making $19 million a year. You've got just so many. Kirk. Yeah, the Christian Kirk deal that, for a slot receiver, you're going to pay him $20 a year. Yeah. I don't know. It's just they fired Trent Baalke 3 days too late because maybe Liam Cohen or Ben Johnson take this job. Because on your high-end players, you've got Trayvon Walker, former number 1 pick. Josh Hines Allen, fantastic edge rusher. You've got Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't hit a ceiling yet. We've seen him up and down and have turnover issues last year before he got hurt, but he's still an up and coming young quarterback in the NFL. You've seen him win a playoff game, and it's very hard to win playoff games in the NFL. You still have, even though they are overpaid, you've got some offensive talent in his weapons. You've got Travis Etienne, really good up and coming running back to build off of the years that he's had prior. Like I said, I just think they did it about 4 or 5 days too late, because if they fired him, and Tony Khan, their owner, was on a podcast about 3 weeks ago, said that they were willing to fire Baalke if the right coach were to enter, and that's what he wanted. And then Liam Cohen withdraws, and then Ben Johnson goes to the Bears, and then you fire him. Like, that is a fumble and a half if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they might have to, like, if Monken, Kellen Moore, like Joe Brady, if they just all stay, like, they might have to pivot to a defensive guy, because they're just like who's gonna
you're running out of guys.
Yeah. I mean, comparing like to the Raiders situation, they hired Spytek from Tampa Bay. That's kind of an interesting move. They're also like reeling with Ben Johnson not taking their deal, because I'm sure like he was like right there with the Bears. So now I think Pete Carroll might be interviewing with them, so that would kind of be interesting, I guess. I don't know, but they're kind of in a like they're also like in quarterback limbo. They don't have an answer there. So like in terms of like head coach, offensive coordinator, that type of thing, like we're not really gonna know that till one of the domino pieces move. I did mention that the Titans getting the Chiefs GM, and then Brandon, I want to talk about the Falcons getting Ulbrich. I mean, that's probably not a bad move. I just think they need like more talent on defense in terms of like getting pass rushers and stuff. I'm not sure if it's like, because as an interim head coach, I don't know, like that Jets team fell apart. But I mean, he is going back to a coordinator. So what do you think of that one?
So Ulbrich was that's the thing. He was a good DC, but how much of that was more Robert Saleh than Ulbrich? Because obviously, when he was the interim head coach for the Jets last year, it went, like Lawson said earlier, it went downhill quick. So how do we know if Ulbrich is the leading guy making all the defensive calls and stuff? Now, granted, Raheem Morris is more of a defensive guy to begin with, so this might be a good situation for Atlanta. And Raheem Morris could make the calls and stuff like that, and like Saleh did. And then Ben Robinson keep on doing his thing on the offense side of the ball, it might work. And then you get the talent, like we were saying, like they get the edge players they need in the draft, or get more talent in free agency on that side of the ball. Then it might work for Atlanta next year to be like competitive again with Tampa Bay in the South. But like I said, if it comes to Ulbrich calling the plays, like I don't know if it's the best hire. Because it showed that him calling, being the head, it showed that the defense fell off for New York, and then Sauce Gardner was not playing well, and your stars outside of Sauce Gardner were not playing well at the time either. So it is a interesting hire for Orlando to do that, to get Ulbrich, and obviously I probably would have avoided it. I would have gone a different direction if I were Atlanta. Just try to find another up and coming defensive mind to help out. If they were in the Romo sweepstakes, that would probably have been a good one to get if the Colts didn't get them right away. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Ulbrich.
Yeah. We didn't touch on the other job left, which was the Saints. Lawson, like what do you think in terms of like going more defensive, like a Dennis Allen, or maybe more offensive? I think Mike McCarthy might be the biggest name attached interviewing there.
Yeah.
If let's just say he went there, how do you see the Saints outlook for next year?
As hypotheticals, assuming Mike McCarthy goes to
Yeah, sure.
New Orleans, there's not a lot of upside. I mean, the only
Yeah,
upside is that it's a winnable division. That's about it. Because how the Jags have bad contracts, the Saints are in cap hell. Like
yeah,
they're still a good 3-4 years away from maybe having around the top 10 in salary cap, and they're a bad team. Bad teams always have salary cap. Why? Because they're not paying anybody. But like with your key pieces, Derek Carr, he is what he is at this point in his career. You have Chris Olave, if he could stay healthy. Rashid Shaheed's a burner. Defensively, I saw Tyrann Mathieu might be a cap casualty, which sucks because Honey Badger just makes plays. Cam Jordan is still elite, even though he's getting up there in age. They're just an old team that's ready for something fresh. Once again, I think they're a good 2-3 years away from maybe being something competitive, but until they can just unless they're just in cap hell to where they can't really make as many big splash moves, like go get a like it's not an appealing place. It's not an appealing situation. Only thing appealing is the division. And I mean, unless they got some cool color schemes. If you like the jerseys, but other than that, there's just it's not an appealing job to almost anybody.
I find it similar to like the Jets job kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like like if they do get like a decent like defensive guy in there or a coordinator and some talent, like they could win like 6 to 7 games, but in terms of their ceiling, probably not that high.
I mean,
we can.
The division is still very winnable because like Tampa won it with what, 9 wins?
Yeah.
So it's like there's not the biggest going from a like. If you just look at their season and their record, the Saints won a combined, right here, they won 5 games. Going from 5 to 7 is not it's not a crazy jump. And if they go from 5 to 7, maybe one of those wins are against Tampa. Maybe it's against another divisional opponent, which means the gap is closer in the division. That's your best case scenario. It's a very still winnable division, even though would I be surprised if the NFC South winner next year had 9 wins again? No, because there's not any world beaters there.
Right. Yeah, like I think I did see some Saints players on Twitter. They actually wanted Darren Rizzi, and then he declined the Bears, I think, defensive job or special team job. I mean, either way, so it's very interesting for what they're gonna end up doing. They might be like the last team to do anything. I don't know. I haven't heard
like the last job taken.
Yeah, but we can end the show off with some draft need for the divisional loss teams. But Lawson, I'll give you the floor on the Steelers because I gotta throw them in there against their your team, and then I can follow up with the Ravens.
Emeka Egbuka. If it's not Emeka Egbuka, I don't want to hear anything else. I mean, and if it's not him, I want a DB. I either want a receiver opposite side of George Pickens. Emeka Egbuka is awesome. Runs the route tree. Good feet. Secure hands. He's quick. But if he goes before we take him, just another DB opposite of Joey Porter Jr. Dante Jackson was excellent, but he's getting semi up there in age. He's 28, about to be 29, I think. He had some back issues, and back issues are never good for a corner. He was, I want to say, top 4 in the NFL in picks, because I know at one point he was leading the league in picks, but just it's such a because I thought we nailed our last draft. Like Peyton Willis was a steal. Both offensive linemen were really good. It's just if it's not Emeka Egbuka, there's gonna be a little bit of a sigh due to I wanted Brian Thomas, and I saw what Brian Thomas did, but We went with the versatile linemen. I get it, and hope. And another thing, Roman Wilson is yet to play.
Yeah,
Roman
like
Wilson is yet to play, and I thought he was the best receiver. When Michigan won the Natty, he was awesome. Only thing is, he hasn't played. So if it's Pickens, Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin in the slot, and like a Emeka Ibuka on the opposite side, I wouldn't be too mad. They're all
well,
three young up and coming players. But yeah, let me hear it, Andrew.
I did hear something about Mike Tomlin liking a certain Alabama quarterback. I
Mil
mean, yeah,
the thing with Milrow is his upside is so big. Like even at the college level, and I understand there's a big jump from college to the NFL, his athleticism is a game changer, and he has a really, really nice deep ball. Only problem is I don't know if he doesn't see the middle of the field very well. We saw when they lost to Michigan, he was just he was sitting there, he was patting the ball. It looked like he didn't know where to go with the ball. However, I think Fields is the guy. And I saw Russell Wilson was on Pat McAfee the other day saying, "Oh, well, contract negotiations have started," which that's great. Only problem is, what's the number? Because
mhm.
Russ was fine until he wasn't. And in the NFL, it's what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And you turn a 10 and we were what 10-3, 10-4 team to losers of 5 straight.
hmm Uh, yeah. For the Ravens, basically in the first round, if it's not like a trench, like an edge rusher or offensive lineman, like yeah, like throw it out, like because
For you, yeah.
um for the Ravens.
No, I'm saying like because you're a Ravens fan, is that who you want? Like just an edge
Oh
rusher
yeah,
or
yeah,
another?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Ronnie Stanley's a pending free agent.
Mm-hmm.
They had issues at left guard like the whole
Yeah.
year. I mean, it's kind of weird because like their offensive line, like on paper, isn't like the best, but then when they play, they're pretty good. But then
The the
when they
scheme is
don't play,
exceptional.
they all suck. So it's
Yeah.
just yeah, Roger Rosengarten at right tackle is very good. Potentially, if Ronnie Stanley leaves, then he might go over to left tackle, and they would have to draft another right tackle or put in
Yeah.
McCarr there or something. Also, like the edge rushers, Kyle Van Noy getting up there, but he had a Pro Bowl season.
That was awesome.
Adolfo was pretty good, but they're still lacking some consistency there. Like, Owe got double digit sacks, but it wasn't like
Anything.
I don't know. I feel like double digit sacks just aren't the best way to judge like
Yeah.
consistency at all. So
I feel
yeah,
like the Ravens too. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue,
no,
Andrew.
like I think and then their secondary, like maybe if it could be a BPA type thing and they go with the secondary again because like Brandon Stevens, thank God he's just off the team. I mean, pending free agent, like I don't know, we don't have to deal with that. It's Nate Wiggins, but they do need a third safety because I don't know what happened to Marcus Williams. Like that whole thing just collapsed again at the safety spot. This always happens. The veterans, like I like Earl Thomas, like they just go nuts after one off season with the team, and then I don't know, they just do whatever. But
I feel like the
are you
Ravens
guys
too
watching?
are just
Yeah,
real quick, Andrew. I feel like the Ravens they're just always in a weird spot for drafting because when you look on paper, they have so much talent, and then it's like when it comes to draft,
do
it's like okay, and then when you come to draft, it's like okay, do we need a receiver? Do we need a third DB? Do we need another edge rusher? Because like once again, very very talented defense, very very talented offense in the style of football that they want to play. But
right.
to hear you as a Ravens fan wanting edge rusher, I don't want to hear that.
Well, I don't think they're gonna go receiver because they've spent what Bateman first round pick, Zay Flowers first
Yeah,
round pick.
yeah,
They barely played Ted Walker. We still haven't
yeah,
seen him yet. They're gonna find a veteran in free agency,
yeah.
probably. And I was gonna say for the secondary, Ardarius Washington was great. I hope
Hmm.
he's back. But they still need that third safety,
Yeah,
for sure. But Brandon, in terms of like the Lions, um, I think they have some pending free agents. It was mostly like obviously on defense, they just gotta get healthy. But what could you see them targeting in the draft?
Another edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Another edge rusher. James Pierce Jr.
Oh
Perfect
my
for that
god, that would
from
be
Tennessee.
awesome.
If they can get James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, that would be the
Do you think
answer they need.
do you think he falls that low?
Well, right now the mock drafts have him falling that low, from what I've seen.
That would be disgusting.
Yeah,
When you pick like his get off is
yep,
second to none, and having him and Aiden Hutchinson, because these quarterbacks are getting so damn mobile that you have to make them step up. If you have to contain you have to have lane integrity and have them step up.
yeah,
And that would be monstrous. And we know how good the front end and the back end work together, and we saw how good their defense was when Ada Hudson was there. So if you
yeah,
add another big time edge rusher, oh
yeah.
my god, that'd be insane. And it kind of goes back to what I just mentioned. Just put talented players on the field, and good things will
right.
happen.
Yeah. So that's the thing, because like the Jack Sawyer rose a lot with this playoff run,
Oh,
especially.
100%.
A couple other guys rose above him, like Scoriton and a couple of other guys. When James Pierce
Yeah,
Jr. was probably one of the best edge rushers in college football over his career. Um, if he got past, if we didn't have the improvements we had in some
another edge
areas of
rusher.
edge rusher, I would not have been surprised of how he drafted Mr. Pierce Jr.
Just
Um,
because
just
it's just a
because
Howie pick. It's just a
that's
Howie
how
pick.
he picked. But I think if Detroit gets James Pierce Jr., it'll be similar to what the Eagles did and got Quinyon, because automatically it fit into what they needed. An
Mm-hmm.
outside corner opposite of Slay, and Quinion's come in and balled out. And I think if James Pierce Jr. goes to Detroit, it'll be a similar situation, and it'll be scary for the NFC.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up, Brandon, in terms of like the Texans and Rams. I feel like I think they both are gonna probably go offensive line. Maybe the Texans take a receiver, um, but at least for the Rams take, they might lean like offensive line or something. Like what do you think about those two teams? And then Lawson, you can follow up on that.
So for the Texans, they need an interior line. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
They had to take a good outside tackle in Mason and put him, or yeah, was it Shaq Mason? Yeah, put
Yeah,
Shaq
the
Mason in,
guard.
yeah, guard at left guard, and you saw what happened there. He played all right for the most part, but the playoff game against Kansas City was probably his worst game of the year. Um, so if they get an interior guard, they're probably back to where they should have been. Granted, they just got to get healthy. And I like
Mhm.
the take that you had with the receiver aspect, Andrew. If an Ibuka is there, if he doesn't get drafted by Pittsburgh, because the familiarity with Stroud, if
Yeah.
if Pittsburgh doesn't take him at 21 and they go another route like corner or something else they need, or go with another receiver like Luther Burden, if he falls down, um, if Emeka Ibuka falls to Houston, that watch out, because that's another teammate of Stroud. He's familiar with Stroud. He knows how Stroud, like where the anticipation of Stroud's routes are. Now, like I said, I think the offensive guard, interior guard, center potentially. I don't think there's that many great centers that are in the first round. So the Rutledge kid from Georgia probably be the pick for Houston in that situation. If, like I said, the dream scenario for Houston, if Ibuka doesn't, obviously doesn't fall past Pittsburgh. For the Rams, they need, their defensive line is young and good. Kobe Turner, Brendan Fisk, Verse, you just saw what Verse did against us, and I keep on forgetting the linemen there, but those three are good build around pieces. They don't really need to go defensive line, even though defensive line got torched by a good offensive line in Philadelphia, but they don't need that. I think they go, like you said, offensive line, Andrew, but there's something you got to keep an eye on too for LA is what they're going to do with Cooper Kupp, what they're going to do with
Mm.
Stafford. If
Mhm.
Stafford decides to
Yeah,
retire,
that's true.
especially here, this is where late round, normally you see a quarterback you don't ever think about get drafted in a late first round situation.
Oh,
Because
okay.
basically with their cap situation, they're not in the best cap situation either to get one of these guys like Darnold, um,
Mhm.
Kirk Cousins or someone like that. I think I could see this is if Matthew Stafford retires, and his wife came out and said he was playing with broken ribs in the second half of the Eagles game.
Yeah, I'm
So
not too surprised by that. Yeah.
yeah, so he came out and played with broken ribs. So we'll see what Matthew Stafford decides. But as you said earlier, Mike Tomlin likes Jalen Milrow. I could
Oh,
see
okay.
I could see Sean McVay turn Jalen Milrow into something. I can also see Sean McVay fall in love with a certain Oregon quarterback that's a lefty, Mr.
Mhm.
Gabriel. I could see that as well. If and this is
Yeah.
all big one huge if Matthew Stafford retires. I think in the end of the first round, I could see one of those two quarterbacks be drafted in this class just to get him developing for a year under McVay. Um, they wouldn't start for the Rams in 2025 if Stafford retired. Obviously, now if Stafford doesn't retire and he's playing, I would still wouldn't be shocked in the second or third round. One of those two guys go with their pick to the Rams. I would not be shocked by that because I think the Rams want to get younger at that position in the future, have a rookie deal kind of a situation, even though that got Stetson Bennett on there. But I think Stetson Bennett's just like one of those backup, like career backups kind of things.
Yeah.
So offensive line most likely for the Rams in the first round. I would see that sense there, but keep an eye on like something. Keep it like if Cup's gone or a Matthew Stafford's gone by April or May or by March and April. Keep an eye on that because that's probably going to be where we can the smoke where there's smoke there's fire, and
Right.
I think the Rams will fall in love with one of these wide receiver prospects or the quarterback prospects.
Yeah, Lawson, you could finish up like the Texans and Rams need, and then
Yeah.
we'll call it the show there.
Yeah. The Texans is gonna be real quick. If it's not an interior offensive lineman, you need to take the paper that you submitted the pick with, crumple it up, and throw it in the trash. Like, if it's not interior offensive lineman,
Yeah.
there's no reason for it. The defense was really good. It's really talented. You have your two edge rushers. Your linebackers are fine. You have arguably the best cornerback in football. Their only problem was the interior of their offensive line, which is why I thought Stroud regressed a little bit. He didn't really have 100% trust in that offensive line, and they suffered a lot of injuries, especially at the receiver position. So I think whenever they get healthy, I could see them once again interior offensive line, and then second or third try and get another receiver because Stephon coming off ACL, he's getting up there in age. Tank Dell,
He's out for Dell's out for 25. Like
yeah, so it's
that needs not good enough for
yeah,
25.
yeah, so it's like there's not really a lot of places to go other than once again interior offensive line and then receiver at probably your second or third round pick. Now, for the Rams, if Stafford comes back, offensive lineman due to why did he have broken ribs to begin with? Oh, because he's getting hit. Because he's getting hit. Because he's getting hit. You do not have a weapons issue. You still, assuming Cooper Kupp plays and comes back, you still have your two what I think are really fantastic weapons. I wouldn't be surprised with a DB either. Their secondary is really young. Your defensive front's good. Your linebackers are okay. So I could see this being a less sexy draft class for the Los Angeles Rams.
Right. Well, that's gonna do it for Total Epic Sports. Following us on that at that handle right there, like and subscribe. We're gonna be coming out with more daily show for fantasy and bets for other sports like MLB, NBA, obviously, and a few stuff for entertainment and gaming as well. But yeah, Lawson, where real quick, where can they find your work?
Total Apex Bets or on Twitter, Lawson underscore 1226 right here. If you like free money, come check us out. We already have both previews for the conference championship games this Sunday. We have player props out for the NFC championship games, for the NFC championship game, I should say, and we're gonna be having the AFC championship game player props up later this evening. Other than that, but yeah, if you like free money, come check us out.
Yeah, Brandon.
Total Apex Fantasy. I just put out literally about an hour before this show the Eagles Commanders DFS slate for that game. It's up on the website right now. Total Apex Fantasy. Working on the current NBA DF slate. Best game of the night probably going to be OKC and the Thunder. I'm working on that DFS right now. As I was almost finished with it before the show, I just couldn't quite get it done. Probably going to get back right on that and get it done. Also, we're going to also do, as Andrew said earlier, we're going to start thinking about MLB player outlooks for the redraft. I think I'm going to get that Paul Skeens one either done this weekend or Monday. So Paul Skeens is going to be my first one for the redraft. We already have an Ohtani one up by Mr. Tommy Harvey. It's a great read. So Total Apex Fantasy and like I said, I've been saying high school basketball is back in full swing. Just came off a game last night, last night. I think Thursday night it was. So no. Yeah, today's Thursday. Wednesday night. No, Tuesday night. Tuesday night. Sorry, Tuesday night. Tuesday night was a good game. So anyway, time. It's been a crazy time. So.
Right. Follow us for more content. At Total Apex Media, and I'm still undecided if next week we're gonna do a show or not, because it's gonna be within like that transition period from starting in February, bringing all the new shows back, and hopefully getting all the content out there. So, but check